Hello, everyone, and welcome to Youth in Tech by BYTE Building Young Tech Entrepreneurs. We are so glad to welcome you to our organization's first community event in partnership with Philippine Startup Week 2021. On behalf of BYTE Building Young Tech Entrepreneurs, the home organization of information technology and entrepreneurship majors in the Ateneo de Manila University, we are extremely honored to be here this week, and we hope that you are just as excited as we are for Youth in Tech. BYTE's primary vision is to promote technopreneurship to the Filipino youth, which is why, apart from Youth in Tech, we also have projects such as Startup Summit 2021, Startup Series, and an upcoming event called BYTE Camp to foster innovative entrepreneurs. We hope that with our event today, you will not only learn more, but also be inspired to take action on these aspirations as we will all hear from our panel of young technopreneurs. To all our attendees tuning in, we highly encourage everyone to participate as we go about today's talks and use the chat function below to interact with the speakers and their keynote talks as we are also streaming this on Axel Events. But before I begin, let me introduce myself first. Hello, everyone. I am Tiffany Fran, your fantastic, super ecstatic, crazy coffee addict from 3PS Comtech, and I will be your host for today. So before we hear from our lovely speakers for today, let me give a quick overview of what BYTE's Youth and Tech 2021 is all about. This is our first community event in partnership with Philippine Startup Week 2021. Our main theme for this year is Technopreneurs, reimagining youth's role in innovation. Focusing on youth entrepreneurship and its global impact, BYTE's Youth in Tech brings together young individuals driven to make a change through innovative technology and engaging discussions. So now that we already know about youth and tech, let's move on to the main agenda for today, which is to hear from our lovely panel of esteemed speakers. Today, we are beyond honored to be in the presence of young global entrepreneurs from different parts of the world. So without further ado, it is my honor to introduce to you our first speaker. She is currently a sophomore at Stanford University and the founder and executive director of WeTech, a non-profit organization based in the Philippines that aims to educate, inspire, and empower youth to break gender barriers and use tech to make a difference in society. Everyone, this is Audrey Pef, WeTech. The floor.
Thank you so much, Tiffany, and thank you to the organizers for having me. I'm really excited to be speaking to you all virtually today from my dorm room here at Stanford. So, as mentioned, my name is Audrey Pe, and I'm the founder and executive director of WeTech, which is short for Women in Technology. WeTech is a global youth-led nonprofit organization based in the Philippines, but with over 20 chapters spread out across 10 countries around the world. Overall, we aim to educate, inspire, and empower youth to break gender barriers and use tech to make a difference in society. When I'm not working on WeTech, I'm a full time college student where I major in science, tech, and society with a minor in education. So, how did I get here? How did I find myself simultaneously running a nonprofit and being a college student and having done education plus nonprofit work ever since I was 15? My story really starts in a middle school computer classroom. So I was born and raised in the Philippines where we have a government mandated computer class. Only this class has very little to do with programming and more on how to use programs like Microsoft Office. Think about Word, PowerPoint, Excel, etc. I admittedly was not too interested in tech until one day my teacher decided to go completely off curriculum and introduced us to this game where a snake had to navigate a maze using blocks that represented lines of code. I remember for the first time in my life thinking, wow, this is what the technology that I use on a day to day basis is made of code. And that I too could learn this mysterious language of computers and better understand the technology affecting my life and my peers' lives on a day to day basis. When I asked my teacher if we would be learning more about programming in class, I was told that it wasn't part of the Philippine curriculum, so we wouldn't be touching the topic any further. But she said that if I really wanted to learn more, I could go online and look up free tutorials from there. So that's what I did. For the rest of middle school and early high school, when I wasn't studying or in clubs, I was Googling how to learn how to code, free computer science tutorials, etc. I entered high school and started getting asked all these really scary questions about what I wanted to be when I grew up, what major I wanted to do, what kind of track I wanted to pursue. And to those questions, I answered tech. And with that, I was met with a lot of mixed responses. My peers told me that I was really brave for wanting to go into tech because at that time I was the only girl in my entire grade that wanted to do so. The guys in my grade said to me, "Oh, Audrey, we didn't know you're into video games," because to them, tech exclusively meant video games. Whereas I was already thinking about the impacts of technology for social good after reading articles and watching videos online and doing research from there. But I think that the feedback that really hit me the hardest was when a teacher said to me, "Audrey, parang di ka bagay sa tech." And the more that I really thought about those teachers' words, the more that I realized that I agreed with her and that I didn't think that I was a good fit for tech because when I thought of the big role models at the time in tech that the media society was presenting me, I thought of people like Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, Elon Musk, basically middle aged white guys that I had very little in common with. So that got me thinking, where are the women in tech? And specifically, where are the women in tech of color? Where are the Filipino women in tech? And why don't I know their stories? So, in an attempt to pursue those stories and really do anything to help close the gender gap in tech, I founded WeTech, which was a blog in 2016 that published the different stories, interviews with women in tech that I had found online through quite literally going on the hashtag women in tech on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and really reaching out and cold messaging these profiles and saying, "Hi, my name's Audrey, I'm 15 and I'm looking for role models in tech. Would you be willing to be interviewed? And I'll write your story up and do a blog post for the WeTech blog." So things were good and exciting and new, and I felt like I was really doing something to contribute to closing the gender gap until I kept on hearing people say that they found the post inspiring. But I had that. I think on the surface you think that that's a good thing. Like you hear people are inspired, that's an exciting, positive, connotated meaning. But I think when I thought back to it, when I thought like more thoroughly, I was thinking along the lines of what good is inspiration if it doesn't lead into action? When we're talking about things like, say, the climate action movement, we can post inspirational things like use reusable straws or go sustainability, but unless we actually take concrete steps into adopting those practices into our day-to-day lives, the problem isn't going to change. So by that token, how can we turn inspiration into action in terms of closing the gender gap in tech? I had on my mind. Thus, WeTech transformed from a blog into a community organization that hosted the first Women in Tech conference for students and vice students in the Philippines. From there, we were able to bring together college students, high school students, some middle schoolers, fresh grads from those interested in tech, slash already studying tech, and bring them together in partnership with Accenture Philippines for a day full of learning straight from women in tech, women working in biotechnology, digital marketing, user experience development, etc. I think a lot of us, when we think of big names in tech, we usually think of Western male names. But at WeTech, we really wanted to change that. So in this Women in Tech conference, WitCon for short, we were able to bring in speakers, workshop leaders that were really Filipinas born and raised in the Philippines, and were able to really give perspectives on a multitude of facets of technology. After the conference, one of the participants, our youngest participant actually, her mom reached out to me on Facebook and said that her daughter was really excited about the next VidCon and was joyfully telling people that she couldn't wait to work in tech someday. What made me really think about how we were actually turning inspiration into action was when the youngest participant of VidCon, once again, months later, reached out saying that she needed to ask me some questions about WeTech for a school assignment. Intrigued, I asked her what the questions were and what it was for, and she replied to me that her teacher had asked her to write about somebody she looks up to, and she chose me and my work with BTAC. And that almost made me cry. And it made me think about all the young girls that we were able to impact through that Women in Tech conference. We were able to give community to so that they no longer had to feel the way I did, which was alone and isolated in the very intimidating tech scene. But when my team and I really thought about the makeup of the conference, the participants, we realized that most of them came from middle to upper class backgrounds and could access events, conferences, go online to seek opportunities from there because they had the means to do so, because they had the laptop, the digital connection to be able to pursue these opportunities. And in the Philippines, as I'm sure most of you know, that is not feasible for everyone. So if we really wanted to rally for equality in the tech industry, my team and I knew we were going to have to expand our operations past Metro Manila and past just a specific socioeconomic status. Hence, the Women in Tech Teach program was born. In 2018, we went to Marawi, and we were able to teach 34 high school students from the Mindanao State University's High School Training Center basic tech literacy skills. I say tech literacy and also basic programming because we don't just jump straight ahead into here's how to code. A lot of these students had never used laptops before, so we had to go into the basics and teach them about how to use a laptop, how to operate Microsoft Office, how to use the different keys. The excitement on their faces is indescribable, and I think it really speaks to the fact that in this classroom, so many of them were excited by tech but hadn't prior been given the opportunity to try. I think that at the end of the day, when we're talking about the gender gap in tech, it is really inextricable from the opportunity gap, the accessibility gap. So that's why at WeTech, we amended our mission and vision into really working towards building a world where all youth, regardless of their gender and socioeconomic status, have access to tech and the potential to use it for social good. This is my story with WeTech. That's what we've done so far. And it seems that our mission and vision has resonated with people around the world because in the past couple of years, we've had people reaching out to us via social media, wanting to start their own WeTech chapters. And now we gladly have 20 chapters and growing in our WeTech community in places like Vietnam, Malaysia, Ukraine, etc. This also speaks to the fact that the gender and accessibility gaps don't just exist in the Philippines but around the world. And what gives me hope that this is going to be an issue that we can solve maybe soon is the sheer amount of energy and resources and optimism that our members at WeTech have for the cause. Every day I wake up really inspired because I work with the most amazing high school, college students, fresh grads. And if ever you're interested in learning more about us at WeTech or want to get involved, please don't hesitate to email me. I'm Audrey at WeTech.org. That's witech.org. And or message me on social media. I'm Audrey Isabel Pe or at WeTech.org. To close up, if ever there's anything that you take away from this, I hope it's that you know that if you're passionate about something in your community, a problem that you see that makes you go, things shouldn't be that way. Channel that energy, that frustration, and use it to turn it into something, into a solution that could potentially help other people within your community. I had no idea that the blog that I started when I was 15 was going to turn into an international nonprofit. But seeing as other people felt the same way about the issue at hand, we were able to turn WeTech into what it is today. Thank you so much, and I'm really excited to hear your questions later during the Q&A.
Thank you so much, Audrey, for that amazing talk. It's so nice to see how you really made it your advocacy to empower women in an industry that's really dominated by men. And you're so driven by passion. And, this will just inspire our aspiring tech entrepreneurs in the call today to really, turn that passion and into actionable results. So thank you so much for that amazing talk. Okay, now it is time to move on to our next speaker of the day. So, if you love playing video games such as Valorant, League of Legends, and Pokemon Unite, you are gonna love this talk. If you aspire to be part of the esports scene in the Philippines, then you are in for a treat. So, introducing the man who was one of the pioneers of the esports scene in the Philippines, he is the co-founder of Academia, where students in Southeast Asia play, connect, and earn through campus gaming. He is currently a senior studying informatics and history at the University of Washington. Having started his career in the gaming space at 14 years old, his advocacy is helping others pursue their passion for games and digital media. He was also previously a technical project manager at Pipeline and a content producer at ESPN. His vision and story have led him to us here today. So without further ado, presenting Mr. Justin Benusing, the floor is now yours.
Hey everyone, I'm Justin. So like y'all, I'm actually a student. So like Audrey and like other people presenting today, I'm actually also a student. So a little bit about me is that I'm currently a senior at the University of Washington studying informatics and history. So by day, I'm a full-time student, and by night, or I guess other day, in a Philippine time zone, I'm helping run Academia. So we're essentially a network of college gaming communities across the Philippines and Southeast Asia. And our overall mission is really kind of simple. Really just help people pursue their passion for games as a career or as a hobby in general. So, Academia really kind of started as just like one kind of sentence. we're building what we wish we had when we were students. But it kind of gets even crazier from there. So, like today, it's kind of crazy to think that we're a student-run venture-backed startup with, I guess I think we can edit this at the time of this call, at the time of this seminar, Siguro. But by the time this seminar happened, we'd have announced that we just raised a $3.5 million seed round. So I think that's pretty cool. But yeah, like from being a student-run VC-backed startup, basically building cool things for student gamers, we actually literally just started out as a high school club back in the province of Iloilo back in 2012. But I guess a little bit of background about what we do at Acadarena. Essentially, the TLDR of what we do at Acadarena lies in our alliance system. So kind of like what Audrey was talking a little bit about at WeTech earlier. What Acadarena does is similar to WeTech in that they're building like chapters of different organizations focused on women in technology. What we do is we help student gamers create hubs or communities on campus for them. So growing up, one thing that I really recognized, or one thing that I kind of felt out of place at school, was that there were so many people who played video games, and there were so many people who just wanted to share their love for games, but they didn't have a place for that. And back in high school, when I was growing up, I was pretty much playing a lot of fighting games alone or playing it with a couple of friends. And I told myself that it's kind of crazy that there's so many people out there who play video games, but they don't have a place to call their own. So me and a couple of friends came together and essentially created a fighting game club for our high school. And from there, it kind of spiraled, I guess, like out of control. We started doing local events. We started doing regional events to the point where there were other kids just like us who were saying that, they too wanted to actually create gaming clubs in their school. And, from there, Acadarena grew. Starting all the way from like a high school movement, we now have over 300 schools across the Philippines and soon Southeast Asia. But I guess little less talking about my company. I'm not really comfortable talking about our company or like kind of like flexing on what we do, but kind of just like the mindset of how we got to where we are right now. So I'm just gonna go back all the way to the beginning and talk a little bit about what it's like being a young founder, specifically my personal philosophy when it comes to navigating a career in the startup space as a fellow college student. So let me just start things off that I knew jack shit about building startups when I first started in 2014. To an extent, I still don't. But that's the beauty about working in such a fast-paced world. Everyone's always figuring things out. In fact, it's much better to know that it's much better to know that you don't know things than to think that you know things. So as long as you know that, things are gonna end up okay. So yeah, I sucked at business, I sucked at startups, I sucked at coding, I sucked a lot of things, and maybe I still do right now. My first business died when COVID started because I relied on events. And we all know what COVID did to events. But I guess what I was good at and what I kind of advocate as my personal philosophy is just always shooting your shot, which I'm going to talk about today. So I guess if you're a Zoomer, you kind of know what shooting your shot means. So, it's mostly a term used when you're on dating apps or when you're talking to people, when you kind of want to encourage a friend to just message their crush. Often hilarious results. You're often going to get rejected. You're often going to get clowned on. But really, it can be used as a mindset of just trying your luck, even when things seem unlikely. Seeing how far you can go when you just, try. So see a job you really want, shoot your shot and message a recruiter. Raising capital as a student founder, pitch to the world's top VCs. Have someone you really like, maybe not there. But it's this mindset that I attribute a lot of my luck in this industry so far. In fact, Acadarena as a company actually basically just started when I shot my shot in 2018 in the lobby of the Mall of Asia Arena. So I basically just had an idea of what Acadarena could be. And I walked up to the director of gaming at Globe Telecom and told him about it. It's kind of crazy. Was it silly for an 18-year-old to pitch his idea to a corporate executive point blank? Pretty much. Was it a waste of opportunity if I hadn't? Definitely. And I kind of translate this mindset to everything I do, in which you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And what's life without a little risk? Confidence attracts success. And that's why you see, all those posts on Facebook about like manifesting all those blessings. Of course, shooting your shot blindly isn't the move at all. Before doing it, take a look and see what you might lose by doing so and weigh the consequences. Sometimes flipping a coin just isn't the right move. I was actually at a point in my life where I kind of just stopped considering taking a shot on anything. After my first business died in COVID, I kind of told myself, I would just go down the day job route, I would grind. I would just like have a like focus on a stable 9 to 5, and there's nothing wrong with that. But deep down, I realized that I shouldn't be beating myself up. Instead, I should be using that as a learning opportunity and showing me that I had to push on and I had to do what I knew best, which is shooting my shot. So the thing is, there's actually a lot of scenarios where there aren't many consequences to shooting your shot. I actually teach a class at here at school, which is about like building your career or job hunting. And one of the crazy things that a lot of students tell me actually is how scared they are when it comes to actually like messaging recruiters. But the thing is that what's wrong with messaging 20 recruiters? What's wrong with messaging 20 venture capitalists? Nothing. The worst thing you're going to get is a couple of weird eyes looking at you, or the best thing you're going to get is someone on your side. So really, to just end this talk and to end like my whole philosophy on how to build a sustained founder is you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And to be honest, like what's life without a little risk?
Thank you so much, Justin, for that very inspiring talk. You guys heard it from him. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. We hear this on court, but we can also hear this in the startup industry. And translating this mindset into everything that you do is just something that's really gonna help you jumpstart your entrepreneurial dream. So before we continue to our last speaker of the day, we will be having a quick break. But before that, please do make sure to check out BYTE's virtual booth. It will be available for the rest of the week, and please feel free to interact with us there. Our member base of aspiring tech entrepreneurs will be there. Our hackers, hipsters, and hustlers, and aspiring startup founders will be beyond glad to meet you. So feel free to refresh yourselves, grab some snacks, and have a quick break. We will be back in 5 minutes, so we'll see you guys then. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you guys took the chance to refresh and ready yourselves because our next speaker will surely give us significant insights that will really create an impact in your future careers. So, without further ado, it is my honor to introduce to you our next speaker. She is currently a Learning Communities Manager for Data Literacy at Escolabs. She is an education and mental health advocate who has spearheaded the launch of data literacy and basic data analytics upskilling programs in Escolabs. She is also a writer who weaves emotion and heart in everything that she produces. Her understanding of power and of words to create connections and bring people together has made a difference in how she approaches community building and community engagement. She graduated cum laude from the Ateneo de Manila University with a degree in communication. So it is my honor to introduce to all of you today Miss Francine Tan. Francine, please take it away.
Hi everyone, I'm Francine. I am the Learning Communities Manager of Data Literacy at Escolabs. We are a leading upskilling school determined to drive social mobility in the future of work through data skills education. So I want to start by asking you guys, what do you want to be when you grow up? This is a question you've probably been asked several times already, since you guys were in preschool, grade school, and high school. And even in college, you will get asked this question nonstop. What if I told you that 85% of jobs that will exist in 2030, that's 9 years from now, haven't been invented yet? This statement explains so much of why Escolabs exists. Escolabs is preparing young people for the jobs of the future. Established in May 2019, Escolabs is a mission-driven startup founded on one core belief: those with data skills will succeed in the future of work. These data skills empower all workers to ask the right questions, communicate with evidence, and make informed decisions. For example, if you see that you keep getting sleepy in the middle of your online classes, what kinds of questions can you ask? Maybe you can ask, how much sleep am I getting each night? Is it enough sleep? Is there anything in my diet that is causing me to be sleepy right now? Am I crashing from a sugar rush? So many questions, but which one is the right one? So data skills empower all workers to communicate with evidence. When you guys want to request your teacher for a move of some of your requirements, what pieces of evidence can you use that are objective and that your teacher, aka your audience and main stakeholder, would understand and appreciate? Maybe showing your teacher evidence of the workload of other subjects. Maybe sharing with your teacher your list of at-home responsibilities. Maybe presenting to your teacher data regarding the number of absences of sick classmates in the past month due to workload. Communicate with evidence. Data skills will allow you guys to make informed decisions. For example, after listening to this talk, it's all information. It's all data. What will you do with the information and power from that information that you have? Again, these data skills empower all workers, all young people to ask the right questions, to communicate with evidence, and make informed decisions. Data skills are what we teach in Escolabs, but as we've continued to pioneer for 2 years now, it's not just about what you learn, but it's also about how you learn. While there are many resources and platforms for upskilling out there, we focus on active, online, and cohort-based learning in data science, data analytics, and data literacy. Our pedagogy is recognized internationally by Education Alliance Finland and awarded by the Asian Development Bank as a winning solution for the digital skills for today's workforce challenge. Learners from different academic and socio-economic backgrounds can access data skills education at Eskwelabs, which is participatory through community and outcome-driven through connections with industry. What I told you now is a brief summary of the story of Eskwelabs and our journey so far. What I want to focus on next, it's your story. It's been more than 5 years since I graduated from Ateneo. I haven't been inside the education system as a student for almost half of a decade. But you guys, you are in the education system as students. I am sure you have experienced a lot in the last year during the pandemic. When you want to become an entrepreneur, you can start with fixing problems that you experience yourself. I want to ask you, what are some of the problems that you experience as a student yourself, especially during this pandemic, right? Can you list one idea, just one idea off the top of your head? Well, I was a student too, and during the pandemic, my sister was a student. One evening or morning, I heard the sound of my sister crying at around 3 a.m. because she could not understand logarithms. Her hair was wild and unbrushed. Who knows when was the last time she took a bath, and a bit of her hair was plastered onto her face, mixed with saliva that dripped down when she would go in and out of math-induced sleep. She'd cry, "What is sine and cosine for in the first place?" She was incredibly stressed, incredibly depressed, and she felt very oppressed. This experience showed me that, wow, education is not ready for online learning at all. I thought back to my school days and how I had friends as support, but all of that is gone now during the pandemic. At Eskwelabs, we have built our product to address some of the issues of online learning, specifically these issues. Learning has to be linked to the real world. Learning has to be social. Learning is meant to make the world a better place. Let's dissect these one by one, and maybe you can get inspiration as well from these. Learning has to be linked to the real world. For us in Eskwelabs, what we push for are not strict numbers or letter-based grading systems. We believe in employment-focused, project-based learning. This means that we focus on useful skills that can be used in a professional context, rather than abstract theory. We teach through experiential learning, hands-on practice, and portfolio building rather than lectures and exams. We believe that anyone can learn 21st century data skills to succeed in the modern world with the right mix of curiosity and learning environment. Number 2, learning has to be social. In Eskwelabs, we also bring back the joy of learning via active and participatory social learning, learning with a group or with a community. We are committed to providing that learning environment where all prospective learners can feel safe and encouraged to develop new skills, make connections with like-minded peers, and even change their life direction. Learning is meant to make the world a better place. In Eskwelabs, we believe that information, data, is powerful. With great power comes great responsibility after all. We must use data for good. One concrete example of how Eskwelabs is paving the path for data for good is through the Data for Good Scholarship of the Data Science Fellowship. This scholarship is a competitive scholarship for incoming fellows who pursue data science solutions for urgent social and environmental challenges. The incoming fellows know that data science has the potential to change not just business and industries, but civil society organizations to make better decisions to benefit everyone. Now that I'm inside the education system as an educator and team member of an edtech startup, here are 3 takeaways for you with practical applications. My first piece of startup advice I'd like to share is about never forgetting your why and never failing to put your users, your audience, or in the Swellab's case, our learners first. They are the ones you're creating solutions for. My second piece of startup advice is for startup founders or startup team members to be comfortable with chaos. There are going to be so many things that don't make sense. Your process, the state of the market, what's happening locally and globally in your teams, across your users. There is so much chaos, so much uncertainty, and things we don't know. So many things that don't make sense. Instead of being overwhelmed by the chaos, tame it in the places where you can. In true startup fashion, what systems can you set in place to bring order to the chaos? My third piece of startup advice I will close with is the idea of keeping your ear to the ground at all times, meaning listen closely and without bias. Listen intently and non-judgmentally. Listen with your heart open. I hope these examples are inspiring for you and get you to start thinking about how you could start small. We don't need to change the world overnight, but we can start small and start with the problems that we see. The systems that you are part of now is the education system. Stay alert and notice the problems and the issues around you. It's easy to lose hope and just complain, but we urge you to think about solutions. Good luck, everyone. Now, at the end of my presentation, here is my final note to you guys. See all that information, all this information for good. Use it for good. Data for good. These are all data points for a future startup that I believe one of you watching can create. I believe in you so much. We in Esquelabs believe in you so much, and we are cheering you on, always.
Thank you so much, Francine, for that amazing talk. I really have to give it to you. Stressing the importance of data drivenness has never been more crucial, especially in this generation. Data truly is a tool that really empowers us to ask the right questions, communicate evidence, and make the right decisions. So, thank you so much for that. All right, so moving on, let me introduce to you our last speaker for today, all the way from Jakarta, Ms. Nasheen Matani, and she is currently the director of Yayasan Peta Bencana, a Southeast Asian-based nonprofit organization developing software infrastructures for community-led disaster co-management. She is the co-head of the expansion of the life-saving platform of Peta Bencana ID, starting from a real-time flood mapping platform in Indonesia to a multi-hazard mapping platform serving millions of Southeast Asians. She is also the principal co-investigator of MERA, a research and design collective investigating the future articulation of governance structures for foregrounded and ecological homeostasis. In 2021, she was recognized by Forbes Asia 30 Under 30 for her contributions to the region's social issues. Moreover, she was one of the 5 global semi-finalists for the prestigious Global Citizen Prize Cisco Youth Leadership Award in 2019, listed as a Southeast Asian Women Leader by YSEALI in 2020, and recognized as a woman innovator by the Information Society Innovation Fund in 2018. So without further ado, let us all give Ms. Nasheen a warm round of applause.
Thank you so much, Tiffany, for the warm introduction and for all of the organizers Good morning, mabuhay. Thank you so much for the invitation to be here today. It's such an important theme, and I think also very timely, as every day in the news now we're reading about the use of tech, where we imagine the future of tech to go, and how we can use technologies to support better ways of living together. And so within this context, and of course within the context of the climate crisis, which these matters are never separate from, today I want to share a little bit about the work that we've been doing in Indonesia and the Philippines in developing open source software to support more democratic forms of climate adaptation for everyone, especially focusing on the role of youth in this initiative. So if I just share my screen. A recent study published in Science confirmed that youth today will live through 3 times as many climate-related disasters as their grandparents. And living in the Philippines, I'm sure you're familiar with these trends, directly experiencing the effects of extreme weather every season and seeing that they're not only becoming more frequent, but more intense. What that means is that during the typhoon season, what we have now is more water falling in shorter periods of time. And what that's doing is that it's placing an incredible amount of pressure on the infrastructures in our cities. And most of the severe climate-related disasters that have occurred in recent years have been a result of infrastructure failure. And what's really important to point out about this is that no matter how much computation we have, nothing could have predicted these events. No one can predict when the canal wall will break or where it will break, and as a result, which areas that it will flood. And although we can't predict disasters or predict seasonal changes in the same way as we could anticipate them before, what we can make sure to do is that when they do happen, we are prepared. And what we really need is a source of real-time information so that even though we cannot predict the events, when they happen, people have the location-based information they need to make time-critical decisions about safety and response. We know that information is the most important resource in a disaster. And, although countries like the Philippines are sometimes thought to be data scarce, I suggest to you today that that's a myth that perhaps you are already aware of. This idea about data scarcity perhaps comes from the idea that there's not a lot of formal data available. But if we look into it, there's actually a lot of data that exists in different forms than we traditionally may be used to. And in fact, the ASEAN region where we're located in is home to 100 million more smartphones than people and has some of the highest social media usage rates in the world. And as we see in this image, people are actively sharing information with each other, even during disasters, even standing knee-high in floodwaters. And what this represents is a tremendously rich and precise data source because all of these devices people are carrying with them are connected to a GPS system and social media networks, which allows for the ability to precisely share location and details of context-specific conditions. And we see that people are actively sharing information with each other about blocked roads, about community needs, about efforts for response, and warning and helping each other. And this is not limited to flooding alone, of course. This year, we've especially seen the use of social media for people at the grassroots level to self-coordinate response when there's a lack of response coming from other agencies. And so the question then is, how can we make use of this heightened use of social media and transform it into actionable information and filter and structure it quickly so that it can help recovery efforts? And so with this question in mind, our team designed an open source software called Cognicity. And how it works is that it listens for specific keywords on social media. So for example, as you see on this post, if somebody is tweeting about flood, if they use that word flood or if they use baha, and we can customize that, but if they use some of these keywords, our software can automatically detect that. And then we have a bot that sends an automatic response that introduces itself as disaster bot, asking users if it's really flooding and to confirm their situation by submitting a flood report. When users respond, they are guided through a few simple steps to submit a flood report, which includes confirming their location, adding a little bit of detail about the disaster, such as the flood height, adding a photo and a description. And as soon as they submit that, that is plotted on live website in real time. And this is a website that's free and accessible for anyone to use. It's designed to be extremely data light, and it's a mobile centric website. And these are the types of information people are sharing about broken canal walls, about inaccessible roads, about blackouts because of fallen poles. And it's a method of crowdsourcing that allows us to reach millions of users every day, allows us to pull information from street level, from the people who know the situation best. That is you, that is the people who are in their neighborhoods observing the changing situations of the flooding and the typhoon, directly experiencing their impact. This is a method for everybody to be able to share that information with each other, and from that information sharing, coordinate within their neighborhoods, and to higher scales as well. Because not only is this a crowd sharing platform, but we also work with government agencies who are monitoring the map in real time to attend to resident needs. And government agencies say that it has significantly reduced loss, increased the speed of response, because they are able to more immediately and more effectively allocate rescue and resource efforts to the places that are in need of it. And so as a result, it's created this two-way information sharing system for real-time coordination at an unprecedented scale, which has improved both communication and coordination between formal and informal sectors of the city. But most importantly, for us, it enables everybody to more equally participate in decision making and in resource management within crisis contexts in their communities. Instead of concentrating decision making in a small handful of people sitting in a control room, what this allows us to do is distribute that control room into everybody's mobile phones. Everyone has access to the same transparent information, and as a result can participate in this cooperative process. Our work is focused on making sure that it's accessible to the most vulnerable communities, and it's built entirely out of a process of co-research with the widest variety of user groups, which includes government agencies, to resident groups and vulnerable communities, and scientists and volunteers, and especially universities and students, with an understanding that any technology doesn't exist in isolation, and so we cannot design them in isolation and then deliver an end product. Well, because any technology exists within specific political, cultural, and economic environments, we have to take these in mind, and we design with that so that the platform responds to locally specific needs. As a result, when this is available for use, people are empowered to take action in disaster recovery efforts because they've been a part of this process. They understand where their information is going. And when everybody in the city is able to participate in infrastructure monitoring, in sharing information about the flood, this reduces the burden on central agencies, and as a result, reduces loss for the country as a whole. And so these are the types of public collaboration and engagement that we need if we are to face our most pressing challenges today. Importantly, I want to point out that it's not a standalone application, and I think this is something very important to consider when we're designing technologies, is especially in a crisis context, research has shown that people aren't going to download something new. They're going to use what they're already using with more frequency. And that's why the software we designed is designed to plug into a variety of social media applications, and people can submit reports using Twitter, Facebook, and Telegram, and we're expanding to plug into a variety of other applications as well. But in this way, people don't have to learn anything new. They just have to use what they're already using, and using the same habits and behaviors that they're used to contribute to community flood mapping, community information sharing, and community efforts for disaster response. The open source software our team designed is also designed to be translatable for other hazards, for other geographies and languages. And so, although we started in Indonesia, it's already being adopted in Vietnam and Hong Kong. And of course, we started a pilot in the Philippines last year, which will be expanding to a national scale by the end of this year. And we also now have a pilot running in India. And although software cannot fix the problem of broken infrastructure, what it can do is to help gap infrastructure failures. So when physical infrastructures like canals and dams fail, we have an adaptive network of information sharing and response in real time to respond and coordinate in the face of those failures. And this is what we need to move towards, is adaptation, acknowledging that these types of disasters will happen, and we need to be equipped with the tools and knowledge to be able to respond when they do happen. According to the 2020 World Disasters Report, extreme weather events will continue to increase in frequency in the coming decades. They will happen more often and they will be more severe. And we know that the Philippines is among the most vulnerable to weather-related disasters. And so to cope with this, what we must do is to focus our efforts on adaptation. And that means our ability to live safely with these events and also live safely with them together. What this means is that everybody must be able to participate in disaster risk reduction. We each have a role to play. We have the power and the ability and responsibility to make decisions about our own safety, about the safety of our families and our communities. And it's only when each of us is doing this that we can minimize risk and loss for the region as a whole. And that's why it's so important for youth to be involved, because half of the world's population are youth under the age of 30, and they are often the first and most effective when weather-related disasters strike. And so in our commitment to work towards more equal forms of climate adaptation, I want to share that we just last month launched a youth ambassador program that I invite everyone to also check out and join if you feel so inclined. The Youth Ambassadorship Program is committed to increasing the agency of young people all across the region so that you can equally participate in disaster recovery efforts and make informed and safe decisions for yourselves and your communities during emergencies in the spirit of Bayanihan. That's all I want to share for today. And I just want to end by saying that even though we have all of these reports coming in about the climate getting worse, what we also have in this region is an incredible culture of mutual aid, of bayanihan in the Philippines. We have a shared culture in Indonesia called gotong royong. And with the technologies that we have today, we can use the technologies to scale that mutual aid into unprecedented forms of collaboration and coordination to address the challenges we are facing together. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Nasheen, for giving us your time to really share your advocacy and your story. Disaster preparedness paired with crowd sharing and the help of our government agencies is truly something that could save so many lives, especially here in the Philippines, wherein disasters and typhoons and floods are just way too common. And Nasheen, I just have to say, it's so inspiring to see how you were able to fuse your passion for both technology and the safety and protection of mankind into something that serves a much larger purpose. And for that, we thank you so much, Nasheen, for your amazing talk. Now, after hearing our entrepreneur stories and advocacies, I am actually being bombarded with so many questions because of all the amazing insights we heard here today. And because of that, we will be opening the floor for a Q&A segment with all our panelists. So can we please ask all our speakers to come up on stage? Hi, Francine. Hello again, Ian. And hi, Justin. And hi,
Hello.
Audrey. All right.
Hello.
Lovely. So it's so nice to have you all. So thank you so much for coming up here on stage. So we have a bunch of questions here, and I've been getting so many questions, but we can only accommodate a couple. So maybe we can begin with Audrey. So Audrey, empowering women is at the center of your advocacy. Do you have a message to young women who are being looked down upon because of their gender?
Mhm. My advice to young women that are being looked down upon based on their gender is to know that you are not alone and that there are communities out there like WeTech, but so many others as well, that are here to support you. I think the beautiful thing about being able to access the internet, watch this recording, for instance, things like that, like they are privileges and they are opportunities for us to be able to connect with like-minded peers online. I remember that when I started WeTech, I was feeling so alone and isolated in the field of tech, but I found community through going online and looking up the stories of different women in tech and reaching out to people with similar interests in closing the gender gap. People that to this day I've never met in person because they live in different parts of the Philippines and even around the world. So use the social media that you have access to on a day-to-day basis as an opportunity and don't be afraid to reach out. I think that's something that a lot of people are very hesitant to do is be the first one that reaches out, especially when it may come to platforms like LinkedIn, which are very like college or like pre-professional. But I do think that something that would pay off in the future and like for me has paid off through WeTech has been just genuinely like taking that first step, reaching out and seeing what types of not just like connections, but also like potential friendships can grow from there.
Thank you so much for that. Audrey, we should connect then. And everyone here as well. You guys heard Audrey drop her socials earlier. So let's utilize this platform to, I guess, make friends and really empower each other. Great. So moving on to our next question. So this one is actually directed to Justin. So Justin, since the gaming industry is getting more and more attention in the Philippines, can you give us some tips for the youth who aspire to create a career in the gaming industry? Like, where can they start and what skills should they learn that could serve as the foundation for their career?
Well, actually, really, really similar answer to Audrey Rin. Like, get involved with your local gaming club, get involved with your colleges or high school gaming club. Pretty much every major university or pretty much every major high school now has a gaming club at their school that's partnered with us. And a lot of the skills that you can learn towards a career that's like relevant in the industry, from back end management, software engineering, to talent management, to being a creative. Like all of these things are things you already learn in school, but being in a gaming community allows you to learn the context of how to apply these in the gaming space. So I would highly encourage you to get involved with your local gaming club. And if you don't, like start one. Like we actually help. We've actually helped so many student leaders start up gaming clubs in their school. So you can actually check out academina.com/alliance to learn about our program where we help develop student leaders to help them establish gaming clubs in their school.
Thank you so much for that, Justin. And if you guys were listening, I'm sure you guys were listening to Justin's talk earlier. You know his story and how he started his whole career. So I hope that's something that inspires all the people who want to become part of the esports landscape in the Philippines. So next question, we have one for Miss Francine Tan. So hi, Francine.
Oh.
So this question is, what advice would you give those who want to learn tech, data science, and analytics, but are afraid to take that first step?
Thank you so much, Tiffany, for that. It's a beautiful question, actually, because it acknowledges that there is fear. So, to all of those who are afraid to go into a career in data, to go to a career in tech, acknowledge that fear first. It's very valid, it's very real. Don't push it down. And then when you identify that fear, try to trace where it comes from. The reason why I want you to trace where that fear comes from is because when you identify where it stems from, maybe it connects to something deeper inside of you, like a deeper passion. And the beauty in having a data skill career is that you can come from any background. Literally, we have people who were artists, who are in social sciences, who were in also in STEM backgrounds, but yeah, they transferred into a data skills career afterwards. So identify that fear, find that inner passion, like why are you afraid? Why are you what's stopping you? And then when you've identified that, come over to Esquelabs. We'll share with you what it is like to have a data skills career.
Right, you guys heard that, right? So you guys head on over to ESCO Labs with Francine, and first acknowledge that fear. Let me just reiterate, acknowledge that fear, because I personally, like, I come from a very humanities background, but somehow I ended up in BYTE, which is like building young tech entrepreneurs. So super like far away from like my normal like career path or field. So really acknowledging that fear and taking that first step is all that it's gonna take. So thank you so much for that, Francine. Now I do have a question for Miss for Nasheen. So as the current director of Yayasan Peta Venciana, what is the most memorable experience you've had so far in relation to your organization's advocacy?
Wow, that's a large question. Thank you for asking. There's so many like memorable things. I think one thing I've been reflecting on lately is everything that we've done. When we set out to do it, people told us it was impossible. They were like, "You're not going to be able to do that." And I think what's important is that uh, if you truly believe in something, just take a first step and move towards that direction. Just because there are people who may be older than you or have who appear to have more experience in certain departments, just because things aren't going in a certain way currently doesn't mean we can't change that direction. And what's been really rewarding for me is to see the number of times we have been told we're not going to be able to do something. We believed we could, and we moved in that direction. And so, simple things from like even just starting our organization and applying for a significant grant and launching this youth program and the impact that we've seen it make. That's been really rewarding, I think, in this journey. And of course, it's not a journey we take alone. It's like it's having an incredible team of people who also believe similarly, and I think most importantly of working with everybody on the ground who are experiencing the disasters, who have really important insights to share, and the stories we gain from that. I think that's been the most rewarding experience, is working with the people on the ground and learning from them, really, like how they live and like how we can work with them together to support better futures for us all.
Thank you so much for that, Nasheen. That was such a lovely answer. I know that we went a little bit deep there. It's like, what is your most memorable experience? So thank you so much for that. All right, now we do have a question directed to all of our speakers today. So we could just do like a table kind of thing. So, what advice would you give to young people who aspire to be tech entrepreneurs or enter this exciting space of startups? And I also want to add this other question because I feel like you guys could answer both. So, what is the most important lesson you've learned throughout your journey in tech and startups? I know that you may or may not have mentioned it in your own talks, but maybe we could personalize it a little bit for our aspiring tech entrepreneurs. So, we could start with Francine. Let's switch it up a bit.
Sure. Those two questions, oh my goodness. Okay. So I want to share something personal first. So my background is in communication. So it's in the social sciences. And what I want now to share with the youth who want to go into startups, who want to go into tech, is to remember, if you want to solve a problem, if no one's gonna do it, why don't you try it for yourself? So when I saw the mission of SQL Labs, I was like, okay, this mission is something that I want to be part of. And I saw that the problem was about like, okay, how can we help people have access to data skills education, because it is expensive, right? So I wanted to be part of that. So that's my advice, to never forget your why. That's something I mentioned in my talk also earlier, but it's so important because the world of tech, the world of startups, there is chaos there. There can be structure, there can be chaos, but when the going gets tough, if you remember the faces of your users, the faces of your learners, the faces of your audience, it makes a difference in the day to day. And a personal message that I have is to never forget the heart. The world of tech, right? It may seem like a bit cold, or it's possible that it can't be cold. It's possible that you can infuse it with a lot of warmth, a lot of love, especially when you think of the people on the other end that you are solving solutions for. So that's my advice. Infuse it with love, infuse it with kindness. Because if no one's gonna do it, just do it yourself.
Thank you so much, Francie. You know, a lot of people need kindness and heart, especially in these very trying times. And again, having a strong foundation for your why is really something that we should keep at the core of everything that we do. So thank you so much for that. Now we can call on Nasheen to answer this question.
Sure, yeah. Thank you for another really great question, a big question. I think one of the things that's really important to remember is that that I also mentioned in the talk is that any technology does not exist alone. It's always within a specific context. And one thing I heard that I think it's recently that I think is really relevant is often you see projects that are technology looking for a solution instead of the other way around. So I think we have to remember that technology is a tool to help us, to support us into getting somewhere, and it is not an end in itself. And so I think when we're developing technologies, it's about this consideration of what are the contexts we are designing within. I think that's incredibly important. And I also want to touch on a little bit of, I think, points that Francine has brought up is my background is not in tech either. My background is in architecture, and I'm so incredibly lucky to be working in a team that's a multidisciplinary team, the majority of which aren't tech people. This is really important to us because there's a variety of perspectives that's brought on to the work that we're doing. And I think that's what makes the technology work, is because there's so many considerations about how it's going to work at a social level, how it's going to work at a city level. And of course, we need our technology experts as well. So it's input from everyone, and this understanding that it's not one discipline in isolation. It's not one group of people in isolation. It's building these technologies together with different types of people, with different user groups, and just using technology as a tool to be able to support us in this mission of creating better ways of living together.
Thank you so much for that, Nasheen. That was amazing. Lovely answer, as usual. Now I'd like to call on Audrey to answer the same set of questions.
Yeah, so I have basically two big pieces of advice. The first one is never expect opportunities to come to you. You have to go to them. And the second one is to always start something, whether it's a nonprofit, a startup, anything, for the right reasons. And I'll explain more on that in a bit. So for the first one, I say to not expect opportunities to come to you. You have to seek them out yourself, because I often get asked by young nonprofit leaders, founders, like, how did I end up like getting like invitations to do talks or like get invited to attend like different conferences? And I think oftentimes when I have these discussions with like people who are starting things out for the first time, there's a lot of that assumption that like the opportunities come to them, whereas I feel like in my experience I've had to really go out to events, conferences to put like word out for WeTech. I remember having to explain that like WeTech wasn't always invited to go to these things. It was like more like I would go message the organizers and say, hi, do you have any spots open for like nonprofits or community organizations? And I remember attending this one big tech conference back home in Manila, and technically like I wasn't even allowed to be there, but I was there because I asked if I could be registered as press because WeTech was a blog back in 2017. So I kind of finagled my way into the conference, had like my press badge, and I watched these talks, and there was an opportunity to ask a question on this panel about the Philippine startup scene, and there was no like discussion of gender, the lack of gender representation in tech. And I remember in that panel, like literally all the speakers were men except for like one woman. And I remember bringing that topic up about like gender discrimination in tech. And even though they didn't answer my question, they were more like, oh, it's so great that young people are getting involved. Like they gave me kind of that response. Afterwards, I was still able to find opportunity out of it because in the process of asking my question, I kind of elevator pitched WeTech, and people were coming up to me and saying like, how can we get involved? Do you have a calling card, etc., etc. Like that is like I think one big example of how stepping up to the opportunities has like really made a big impact on WeTech. Because one of the people that approached me after that conference, or after that like, question in the conference, was the organizer of the ASEAN Young Entrepreneurs Carnival. And then she invited me to speak, in my first ever like talk on WeTech to an audience of over 4,000 young entrepreneurs from across the region. And that's how like the speaking invitations and publicity for WeTech kind of just snowballed. Which also links to like my second piece of advice, which is like to do it for the right reasons. And I say that because I'm noticing this phenomenon where a lot of, I don't want to generalize, but I've noticed in my experience, like a lot of young people will start things for university applications or like for the CV and resume. And I just want to say that if you really care about starting something that really does make a difference, you will do it because you want to solve the problem that your startup, your nonprofit is addressing. Like CV aside, application side, like you should be thinking about are the people that you want to help and the community that you're going to help. And that's something that really helped WeTech become what it is today. Because to me, I didn't care about whether or not it was going to be on my college applications or CV. What I really cared was making sure that our mission and vision like came into fruition, and that the people that we're helping, our community, were really benefiting from our programs. When you keep that, I think, at the heart of what you do, that's how you'll stay sane in like the craziness of like the tech scene, the nonprofit scene. That's how I was able to balance things like with high school and nonprofit work, and now being at university. I still continue to do this work because I genuinely think that it's important, and it's something that I've noticed like lately when in that conversations with like young people, like there's a lot of kind of I think distrust as to like, oh, in terms of like recruiting other people, like who do you know like who's in it for the right reasons. And I just want to say that if you're starting something from like the beginning, from the bare bones, you have to be doing it because you have a passion for helping your community. So that's my pieces of advice.
That is amazing. I was honestly very touched. Like, I think you and I were both in college, and, people are raving about like having more internship opportunities in their CVs, having a better resume. And honestly, it's one thing to score a good job in the future because of a beautiful resume, but it's another thing to do things because like there's a deeper purpose and it's something that really connects with you on a deeper level. And so thank you so much for that. It's so crazy to see how like in this kind of industry there's a lot of heart that comes into the things that we do, and it may not seem like it, but it's amazing how you guys are talking about it, and I hope that this is something that will stick in the minds of our participants. And last but not the least, let's call on Mr. Justin Venusing to answer this final set of questions. Hey, Justin.
What's up?
Hey, okay, so let me just reiterate the question because I think we had like a long conversation with
Yeah, that
these
was
three
pretty
lovely
long. Yeah.
women. So the question is, what advice would you give to people who aspire to be tech entrepreneurs, or to those who aspire to enter this exciting space of startups? And what is the most important lesson you've learned through your journey in tech and startups so far?
I mean, it's a pretty corny answer, but I would just say, like, don't be afraid of failing. Like, you're going to fail a lot of times. You're going to, like, stumble a lot. And the reality of, like, working in any fast-paced world is that you are going to fail a lot. And what matters the most is really just how you pick yourself back up. Like, obviously, it's going to hurt the fuck out. Like, it's going to suck failing. but it's really like it's normal and things are just gonna work out.
Thank you for that. That was very direct, very straight. I love that. And Justin, this isn't our first encounter, so can I just say I love the way you answer questions. It hits you like super straight, super quick, and I just gotta give that to you. And you know what? I think that I can speak for all the attendees here today when I say that I've learned so much, not just about the technicalities of the industry per se, but rather the initiative, the heart, the why, the purpose that have driven all of you to do and create the things that you've all talked so passionately about. And so, with that, I would like to thank you guys, personally, each one of you, for sharing your valuable insights and stories that truly define what it means to be young technopreneurs reimagining innovation. So now let us move on to the presentation of our tokens and certificates for our speakers for giving us their time. So I would like to invite the Youth and Tech Project Head, the lovely Julian Israel, to present these certificates to our lovely speakers.
All right. So thank you very much, Tiff. And thank you also to our speakers, for sharing with us their time and their expertise. It's an absolute honor to hear from all of you. And I'm sure a lot of our participants were inspired by your stories. And of course, to show our thanks, we would like to present a certificate of appreciation first to Miss Audrey Pe. So this certificate of appreciation is presented by BYTE to Audrey Pe for sharing her valuable insights as a guest speaker during BYTE's Youth in Tech 2021. So to document this, maybe we can give a smile to the camera on three. So on one, two, and three. All right. Thank you very much. So our tech got that already. Thank you very much. And next, we'd like to present the certificate of appreciation presented by BYTE to Mr. Justin Banusing for sharing his valuable ideas as a guest speaker during BYTE's Youth in Tech. Okay, so next slide, please. Thank you very much. There you go. So on three, let us all give a smile once again to commemorate this moment. So on one, two, and three. All right, our tech has got that. Thank you very much again, Justin. And we'd like to present our next certificate of appreciation presented by BYTE to Miss Francine Tan for sharing her valuable insights as a guest speaker once again in BYTE's Youth in Tech 2021. So thank you very much, Francine. We learned so much from you. And on three again, let us all give a smile. So on one, two, and three. All right, thank you very much. Our tech person has got that. And last but not the least, we'd like to present this certificate of appreciation presented by BYTE to Ms. Nasheen Matani for sharing her valuable insights as a guest speaker during BYTE's Youth in Tech 2021. So once again, let us all smile for the camera on three. One, two, and three. All right, thank you very much, Nasheen. And now to document this whole moment, may we call on all of our speakers to join us on the stage for one last group photo. All right. Thank you very much. And if everyone can please on their cams as well. All right, so one last group photo for everyone on three. One, two, and three. Okay, thank you very much once again. And on behalf of BYTE, we are absolutely honored to have you on board with us today. You can take it away, Tiff.
All right, thank you so much. So, guys, please give Miss Julian Israel a warm round of applause. That is our lovely project head. Right now, going back to the program, I just want to say it's so great to witness how technology is truly being reimagined by the youth. It's an absolute honor to hear from our lovely speakers for today. And if you guys really want to take action on these insights, please feel free to check out the resource pool we have made for you guys in order to help you kickstart your journey in tech. And if you enjoyed today's Youth and Tech Talk, make sure to like BYTE's Facebook page and also follow us on Instagram at BYTEADMU to be updated on our up-and-coming projects and initiatives and you guys can actually also check this on our organization's website at www.byteadmu.com. we'd like to invite everyone to please stay tuned with BYTE's social media platforms and stay updated and more on our events. And make sure to check out the resources that we have for all of you guys, for our dear attendees. So that was a wrap for BYTE's Youth in Tech 2021. We hope that you were all inspired by the stories you heard today. And of course, we'd like to extend our deepest gratitude to Philippine Startup Week 2021, your team, for all your guidance and for being our partner, because this event would simply not have been possible without you. And with that, please make sure to visit BYTE's virtual booth so you'll be able to interact with our skilled and talented bits. So we'll see you for the rest of the Philippine Startup Week. Once again, I have been your host, Tiffany Fran, your fantastic, super ecstatic, crazy coffee addict from 3BS Comtech. And this has been BYTE's Youth in Tech.